What's up everybody, Arrg the Pirate here, and today we're going to go over positioning and rotating for the jungle. Now there are several different junglers that can be very successful in that jungle position, but aren't typically a jungle hero. For example, I'm playing Crunch, and he is a great offlaner and he does decent in the jungle, but he is more of a later game jungler where he really comes alive at level 5. Now here are a few of the other junglers that, are really good in this position, but, you can play just a whole ton of different junglers. First we have Grux. Now Grux is a great jungler, he's got great control, but he does not have a sustain. Chimera has an amazing sustain, he's a really good early game ganker, but he tends to fall off late game and is not quite as impactful as he once was in the beginning. And Seraph is a carry, so once she gets fed she can just absolutely destroy people, but she has a harder time playing that jungle position because the jungle camps hit pretty hard. Although these are just a few of the jungle positions, really the amount of heroes that can play the jungle is almost the same as the amount of heroes that can play the off lane. It really just depends on team comp and things like that. In my opinion, there is only one hero in Paragon that should only play the jungle position, and that is Chimera. Although you could argue about Sevarog, I have found a lot of people play him off lane, and if they're good with him, they can be very successful in off lane. I just prefer to see him in that jungle position. But Chimera really offers very little other than being in the jungle. So I would typically say if you want to play Chimera, you need to play in the jungle. Now I have done a video going over the basics of the jungle, so I'm not really going to talk about when the camps spawn in and things along those lines. I'm not really going to discuss the Amber Link and how it affects the team. I'll go ahead and leave a link, and at the end of the video I'll have, a deal where you can click on to access or to go view that other video. And I have actually done a beginner's guide. It was one of my first videos, but I did do a beginner's guide on Chimera, and it's still a viable option as of right now. Of course, everything's changing in just about a week and a half. Alright, let's first talk about the jungle. Now, here I am as Chimera. I'm in a bot match, so the minion camps, it really seems like they don't hit as hard. They take about the same amount of time to kill, but I have noticed that it does not seem like they hit near as hard as they do when you're playing a PvP match. But this is typically how I start out. I go ahead and clear out camps, and then I'll go after the green buff. Now, as the jungler, if you are a hero that has some sort of sustain, like Chimera, Rampage, Kwong, really anybody that has that built-in mechanic, you need to start out with that sustain. Plus, having a siphon like a Magnus Siphon or a Sage's Siphon can really help you maintain high health and still down that green buff and be available for a gank. Now, there are two ways of going about picking up the green buff. You can pick it up early at that, just before that 3-minute mark. I'm a little behind because, bots invaded my jungle at like 40 seconds, but you typically would head over to that off lane or safe lane to get the enemy safe lane, that is, to get a gank at around 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Now that's what I typically like to do. It really depends on if the enemies are pushed up to your tower, which in today's meta they usually are. Once you get that gank, that frees you up. If you are able to get a kill or just push them back far enough, that frees you up to actually go for their gold buff, which is one reason I really like to do that. I get to rob that gold buff and slow their farm down. That'll just, it's not a big thing, but if you're able to do that once or twice, you can get, a substantial lead. Now, as the jungler, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time in the jungle in that early game. You really want to be out ganking and things like that. But right now, if you look, all of our lanes are pushed. I have nobody to kill. I've got nobody to gank. I'm going to go into my jungle and clean up my jungle camps. Now, picking the right time to clean up jungle camps is huge. If you're constantly staying in your jungle, you're hurting your team. Sure, they're getting card experience, but you're losing progress on objectives, and it is very important as the jungle hero to gank as much as possible. If someone's out of position, go gank them. If a hero dies, go cover their lane. You are the handyman of Paragon, and you really fit every job. So that is key when playing the jungle role. Alright, now let's talk about when not to gank. Now right here, I am heading over to gank these two unexpected heroes. Now they have a minion wave, and I'm going to just absolutely get slaughtered, especially at this lower level. But it does not really matter. That was a terrible decision for me to make. You should never go gank in the middle of an enemy minion wave, let alone there being two heroes. But let's just act like that Grux wasn't there. Going and ganking like that is just a terrible, terrible idea. You want to wait until you have the minion wave advantage. Alright, next let's talk about jungle invading. Now, invading the enemy's jungle is almost a secondary goal of the jungler. It is really good when you can, but knowing the right time to do it is key. Now, you want to wait until some type of push is happening. Like right now, you can see all of our lanes are pushed, and the enemies are focused in mid, or the enemy heroes are. Now is a perfect time for me to go invade the enemy jungle and really rob them from CXP. Now, one thing about invading is if you want to do a quick invade and not really spend a whole lot of time in that jungle to really clear it out, which is, in all honesty, a terrible idea. You really just want to head in, get a kill, then head out. That is kind of the key of invading the jungle. Maybe go steal the green buff, maybe go ahead and clear out the enemy's camps, but you don't want to spend 45 seconds in the enemy jungle, especially if a lot of the enemy team is up. Now, I really like to invade when the enemy jungler is down. That is kind of the time I look for. And one really good thing to note is most of the time, the enemies don't clear out their offlane camps. They leave those camps and they're almost always at 5 stacks. So if you're pushed up, your jungle's clear, it's fine to go invade and get some of those kills or get that farm from the enemy. Alright, jumping back into this crunch gameplay. Now, I was unable to down that green buff. He would have killed me if I would have stayed there, but I did get his 2 minions. So I'm going to go ahead, head back, get my green buff, and then I will be able to rotate. Now, rotating for the jungle is all about seeing where the enemies are. I like to use the river as kind of a guideline. I do it without thinking now, but I like to use the river. In mid lane, if the enemy is not on your side of the river, you're probably not going to get a successful gank in this early game, just because you don't have just a whole lot of CC and things like that. Now, if you see here, I go in on this Chimera, I hurt him in his jungle. He was attacking the minion, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this kill. Fortunately, I let him get away, because I'm terrible. But, I did force him out, and I was able to, not take any damage, which he did a great job by not attacking me. If he would have hit me once, he would have been dead. But you can see, rotating, I'm now going to cover mid lane, because our Countess, or I'm not exactly sure who's our mid laner right now, but she actually left the lane, so I'm going to go ahead, cover it for a minute, kind of get those minions out of there so it's not going to push against us, and then I'll head back into the jungle. Now, while I'm clearing out this camp, I notice, hey, there's a big rotation in our off lane. I'm not going to continue farming this camp. I want to head over there. I want to make sure our offlaner doesn't die, as well as maybe try to get this tower to last a little longer. I could have stayed and got that, 3-4 camp, and it would have got us all CXP, but it is much better for me to rotate and help him out, because that is really the role of the jungle. Now, I do have a few really high camps. If you see here, this offlane camp is at a 5 stack. We're at 5 minutes in, so that means no one has touched that camp. But we do have some engagements going on here at this offlane, and I need to help my team out. Instead of trying to clean up those camps, I want to come over here, help them out. Maybe we can get a couple of kills and everybody's going to survive. Now I'm going to head back, and our Chimera was ready to pounce on somebody. We kind of pin him, and I'm waiting to see if he's going to dive the tower or not, but he didn't. He ended up going after our Revenant, and we wrapped that kill up very easily. Now, we did just get a couple of picks, and that means we're going to have some decent lane push. And I'm still not level 5. That means I've really been spending a lot of time rotating and things like that, and I need to hit level 5 as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead, take out this 5 camp, get back to base, spend my few points, and then head back into the jungle and really clean up those camps. Now, one thing to note is if you do not clear out all 3 of the camps when they first spawn in at that minute and 20 seconds, that means you will need to be back at the camp that you did not clean out. You'll need to be back there earlier, because you will miss out on 2 minions if you rotate back at the normal time. Now, if you spend a lot of time rotating, I would highly suggest cleaning out all 3 of those camps. And then at 7 minutes and 20 seconds, all 3 of those camps will be 5 stacks, and you can go ahead and clean those 5 stack camps up. Now, I use the green buff to clean these camps up because our lanes are not sitting just perfect, and I kind of worry about having a rotation. I would just be a failed gank, and I don't want to lose out on this CXP. So 7 minutes and 20 seconds, I'm going to head back into my safe lane side of the jungle and clear out all 3 of these 5 stack. Now, if you are low health and low mana in your jungle, you have to be worried about situations like this. If you see this Chimera came in with green buff, he was able to ambush me and get a good bit of damage on me. Now, this Chimera was not at level 5, and that's the only thing that saved my life there. But if you are going to allow your camps to get up to 5 stacks, you need to be aware that you are going to take a massive amount of damage when you clean them out, especially at these lower levels. So, you need to have good awareness of where the enemies are while you are cleaning out those last camps, because just like that situation I was just in, that could happen to you, and you might not be as lucky as I was. Now, as the jungler, another big key point to your role is if you do not have a good rotation, let's say at 3 minutes, your offlane is doing a great job and the enemy team's not playing aggressive, so you don't have a gank there. You don't have a gank in your safe lane, and your mid lane's kind of in the middle where it typically is. You can ping to your offlaner attack river camps, and that will kind of let them know where you are on the map, and to expect that they go for the opposite side river buff. This will allow you to not only keep the river buff out of the enemy hands, but the enemy might not be paying attention, jump down, and you're able to get a gank that they walk right into. Early game river buff control is key for a mid lane hero, and if you're able to steal, or not really steal, but keep those river buffs away from the enemy mid laner, they're going to struggle to be able to resist or push back the enemy waves, especially if you get a good river buff like purple or even a black buff that allows you to do a ton of damage and force that mid lane hero out of position. Not to mention, sometimes they're not paying attention, they just jump down there and you're able to get a fairly easy gank on them, because mid lane heroes are generally very weak in the beginning game, and as the jungler you're going to be much stronger. Before I wrap this video up, I'd like to just kind of reiterate a few of the points that I made about the jungle role. Maintaining control on the green buff is key. You never want to allow the enemy team to take your green buff. Unfortunately, sometimes your teammates do, but that is much better than allowing the enemy team to take your green buff. Also, you never want to let your camps get above 5 stacks. At that 7 minute and 20 seconds, if you cleaned out all of your camps, you want to make sure to make that rotation and get that final camp. Next, you are the team's handyman. You can do any job well, and you can do any job better than other heroes on your team. You want to make sure that you're constantly rotating or cleaning out jungle camps. For the jungle hero, your job is to always have a specific objective. Unlike the off lane, where sometimes you're just standing around not doing a whole lot, you want to definitely make sure you have an objective in mind. I'm going to get a gank in this lane. I'm going to rotate over here. I'm going to go clean out my jungle camps. I'm going to go invade the enemy jungle. You always want that mindset of you are constantly getting farm, almost to the extent of the ADC, but your end goal is to not get farm. Your end goal is to provide farm or alleviate pressure from other teammates. Well, that's going to kind of wrap it up for this positioning and rotating guide as the jungler. There are so many different roles that can play jungles successfully. There are so many different ways to build heroes. You can build tanks, you can build bruisers, you can build, just straight fighters and be very successful in the jungle position. So it is really hard to say, this is the hero, this is how to play. It doesn't matter which one you get. I typically play a bruiser build whenever I go into that jungle position, but everybody's kind of got their own way of playing, and the jungle position allows people to have the most freedom. Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, show me some love. Leave me a comment, think about subscribing, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next video.